Hello, you all. Now, I know it's not May 24th anymore. It's May 25th now, 2016. But I'm not done making videos about May 24th because it's a very important day to me, as you know from my last video. So, I want to share this poem that I've written concerning May 24th, concerning surviving a storm. And it's a pretty emotional poem, and I would like to share it. And this is how it goes. It's called Mercy Within the Storm. Terrified, I wildly flee across the barren scape as the dark sky swirls above. I run desperately, my perspiration pouring from my body as blood from a fatal wound. My breath is choked, and my legs stumble from weary agony. The murderous cyclone overpowers me, sweeping me off my feet. I feverishly fight the fiendish whirlwind, but it is possible to escape the bone-crushing forces. I am expectorated back upon the earth, and the demonic tornado howls past, forsaking me to perish. I drag my marred body along, my face twisting in intense agony. I feel my very life bleed away, horribly quick. Finally, I collapse, helplessly listening to the storm roar with evil triumph. A cold sensation begins to crawl all over me, the grasp of death about to claim my feeble life. Upon my last breath, I cry out for mercy. The heavens part, and a light far beyond mortal radiance shines a healing warmth throughout me. My eyes behold God in all his glory, gazing upon me with a compassion nowhere to be found within the cruel mortal world. My deepest sorrows fade as abundant hope begins to mend my broken existence mortally and spiritually, even within the darkest moments of life. God bestows mercy within the storm. Well, that's a pretty epic poem. I'm not trying to brag. I did write this poem, but it expresses how I feel about God and how I feel about the fact that he spared my life from a storm. And I really thought that I was going to die on May 24th, 2011. I thought that my life as I knew it was over, and I remember how emotional I was that day, and how I just pretty much just hit my knees and just pretty much just hit my face laying on the ground, just feeling defeated, knowing that the storm was going to come and destroy the area, destroy the apartment complex that I was living in, destroy and kill everything in its path. There was, in fact, an EF5 tornado in that storm. And as I said before, an EF5 is considered the largest and most dangerous tornadoes in a storm. They have the highest wind speed and the most destructive, updrafts that just suck things up. And they're very powerful and dangerous, and they pretty much can destroy any structure they hit. An apartment made of wood has no chance against an EF5. No way. The way the apartments were built, more likely, I think an EF0 would have been enough to cause damage. There was an EF0 that hit there one time, and it did cause damage. It actually caused a roof of one apartment complex to cave in. So that apartment complex, if that was an EF0, which is the weakest tornado on the enhanced Fujita scale, then an EF5 would have completely destroyed the area, and it was coming. The meteorologists had it on radar, everyone was looking at the radars, and there's people that told me that I was more likely going to die if this tornado hit. And the stupid thing is, about this apartment complex, is that it didn't even have a storm shelter for the residents. I couldn't believe it. There was no storm shelter. And people are left at the mercy of this EF5 that was coming. And I was so emotional that day. And it was like, not only I, but several people were going to die or be severely injured. And I just remember, I pretty much cried out to God. I knew that only God could stop an EF5. And I know a lot of people don't believe in God, but God is real. I'm telling you, I mean, like I said before, read about Jesus. Read the Gospel of Jesus Christ. Matthew, Luke, Mark, John, somewhere in there, you're going to read about Jesus being in a boat with his disciples, and they're going across, I believe it's a Sea of Galilee. But it was in that area, and there was this big storm just came upon the sea. And the disciples were freaking out. It was a bad storm. It was not a normal storm. I mean, some of these disciples were seasoned fishermen. So they're used to bad weather on the sea. But this was not a normal storm. This was like probably a supercell. There was probably water spouts. There's probably tornadoes on the sea. Tornadoes on the water. I mean, the disciples are freaking out, and Jesus woke up and he just rebuked the storm, and the storm just boom, the storm was gone. And that's what happened on May 24th, 2011. It was like I cried out to God, and I literally just was on my face. I was trying to cover up my head with my arms. I was trying to just lay on the ground and just hope that the twister wouldn't suck me up. Because there was nowhere to hide. There was no storm shelter. I was just basically at a stairwell at one of the apartment buildings, and I just hoped that that stairwell would be strong enough some way, somehow. It was made of metal, but I kind of knew that an EF5 could take metal and wrap it around the tree. I kind of had a horrible thought of what my death might have been if that twister would have tried to suck me right through a ladder rail, a stairwell. Just horrible thoughts of myself dying, being marred by this tornado. And like in the poem, like just imagining just being just torn apart by a twister. Just literally. And it's a horrible way to die. I mean, I'm telling you, that's why my heart goes out to those people that have passed or have been severely injured because of what these tornadoes can do. This is raw power, and only the hand of God can stop these things. I know meteorologists are trying to have all this science and trying to find ways to stop a storm, doing cloud seeding, but mankind can't stop the weather. We might actually make it worse. I mean, you don't mess around with God's creation. Weather is part of God's creation. You don't mess with the weather. So I warn the weather community, don't you be messing around with science and the weather. Don't be, they need to stop messing around with the chemtrails and all this stuff they keep shooting in the atmosphere, because they're more than likely causing the weather to become more severe. And it is becoming more severe. There's just tornado outbreaks all the time when there used to be far and few in between. And that's why what happened on May 24th, I had no doubt that me as well as the lives in that apartment complex were at serious risk. But I remember I just gave myself over to God. I knew that only God could stop something like that. And he did. And it was just, as I described in my last video, it's like when you feel the presence of God, it's not like anything that you've ever felt in your life. It is a healing warmth. It's love and hope that you can never find on earth. It was hope from heaven, from God's kingdom, that God decided to spare my life along with all the people in that apartment complex that day. Is a beautiful thing, and that's why this poem, is inspired. It's like I became so inspired ever since that day, and this poem just describes what it's like to be in a completely hopeless situation where you think that you don't stand a chance, but God can save you. And this poem can go for many hopeless situations. Anything that has a grip on your life that you think is going to kill you. God can free you. Even if you're a drug addict, even if you're, you know, in a situation where you're dying from a disease or cancer, or you're caught up in some kind of a drug addiction or alcoholism or some type of situation that just has your life in a grip, and you feel like that death is upon you, like the only way you're going to get out of this is dying. But God still heals people. Please don't lose hope. That's basically what this poem is. Mercy within the storm. Because there's many different kinds of storms. Not just tornadoes, but many, many different kinds of storms out there. Please, folks, don't lose hope. I know it's really hard. We're living in some very trying times. And based on the reality that Israel has become a nation, we're living in the last days. So there's many storms that we are facing in this world. But just remember that if you truly believe with your heart, and you are truly willing to put your trust in God, He'll show you mercy. And I tell you, May 24th, 2011 is living proof. I'm living proof of that. As well as those other people in apartment complexes. As I said before, I wish I would have kept in contact with someone from there. I wish I would have gotten closer to my neighbors to where I would have gotten to know them, because they know, because they went through the same thing I did. But don't lose folks, because don't lose hope, folks, because no matter what, sorry if I stumble over my words. I tend to stutter and stumble over my words, but it's mainly because I get so emotional, Talking about May 24th, it just gets me so emotional. It's like I just want to cry every time I talk about it. I mean, literally, my tearing up, It's like it's such a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful example of how God proves His mercy, even in a dark, stormy world. So please, folks, just remember, no matter what you're going through in your life, no matter what kind of storm, God can set you free, and He can show you mercy. Because as long as you believe, and you truly want to be free, and you cry out to God, there's still mercy within the storm. And thank you all for listening, and God bless you all, and remember, don't lose hope, because even in these dark storms of the world, there's still mercy within the storm. Just cry out to God. Surrender yourself to God. Let Him come to you, come into your life and save you. Let Him save you from these disasters of life that we find ourselves caught up in. And never forget that there's mercy within the storm.